Genesis 15. Affirmations of fearless faith, divine protection, covenant, and promise. What do you do when God has spoken, but your life still looks nothing like the promise? Genesis 15 begins right there. Abram had a word from God, yet he still had questions. He had faith, yet he still felt fear. He had a promise, yet no visible fulfillment. But before the chapter ends, God moves him from fear to faith, from questions to covenant, and from focusing on what is missing to looking at a sky full of stars. Listen with faith. Believe deeply and receive this into your spirit. As you embrace the truth of Genesis 15, may these affirmations take root in your life according to God's will. The chapter opens with God speaking into Abram's fear. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. Genesis 15:1. Before addressing what Abram lacked, God reminded him of who was with him. Therefore I affirm, fear will not be the voice that leads my life. When uncertainty surrounds me, I will remember that God is my shield. My confidence will not rest in possessions, people, or achievements, but in the presence of God. I receive courage to keep moving forward even when I cannot see the outcome. Abram then honestly expressed his concern. He remained childless, and the promise seemed impossible. Genesis 15:2-3. Because Abram brought his questions to God, I affirm, I do not have to hide my struggles to remain faithful. I will bring my doubts and disappointments to God without turning away from Him. Delay will not harden my heart. I receive patience, honesty, and endurance while I wait. Then God shifted Abram's perspective. He brought him outside and said, Look up at the sky and count the stars. So shall your offspring be. Genesis 15:5. Abram was focused on limitation. God pointed him to possibility. According to Genesis 15:5, I affirm, my present limitations do not define my future. I refuse to let what I lack today restrict my faith. When life tells me to look down, I will look up. My future remains in God's hands, not in my fear. Then comes the turning point. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. Genesis 15:6. The promise had not yet appeared, but Abram believed. Therefore I affirm, I choose faith before fulfillment. I do not need complete answers to trust God. Even when the path is unclear, my heart will remain steady, believing, and surrendered. As Abram waited for God's covenant instruction, birds of prey tried to interfere, but he stayed watchful and drove them away. Genesis 15:7-11. Therefore, I affirm, waiting will not make me careless. I will guard what God has placed in my life. I receive discipline, focus, and strength to remain faithful even in seasons of delay. Then the atmosphere shifted. A deep sleep and thick darkness came over Abram, and God revealed that his descendants would face hardship for generations, but also deliverance and blessing afterward. Genesis 15:12-14. Therefore I affirm, difficult seasons do not mean God has forgotten me. Darkness is not abandonment. I receive endurance for trials and wisdom for every challenge. I will not judge my entire life by one difficult season. God also revealed that timing belongs to Him alone. Genesis 15:15-16. Therefore, I affirm, I will not lose my peace trying to force God's timing. I will live faithfully in my present assignment and trust God with what is beyond my season. I receive patience for processes I cannot control. Finally, the sun set completely, and in the darkness, God himself passed between the pieces, establishing his covenant with Abram. Genesis 15:17-21. The chapter begins with fear. It ends with covenant. So I affirm, when I cannot see the way forward, I will remember the God of Genesis 15. When fear speaks, God is my shield. When life feels empty, I will remember the stars. When promises feel delayed, I will choose faith. When waiting is long, I will remain faithful. When darkness surrounds me, I will not assume God is absent. When timing is beyond me, I will trust God completely. I will not be ruled by fear. I will not be defined by what I see. I will not let delay destroy my faith. I will guard what God has given me. I will endure without losing hope. I will trust God's timing. The God who met Abram in fear, in waiting, and in darkness is the same God I trust today. My heart is anchored in Genesis 15. I will look beyond my fear. I will believe the Lord. I will remain faithful while I wait. And I will trust the God of covenant, even in the darkness. Amen.